Your word is your authentic self. Welcome everyone to the Leadership Launch series. Thank you so much again for clicking on another video. I am Spencer and I'm here to help build leaders and build their teams with their structures and communication. And today what we're going to go over is your authentic self. You might have heard me mention it in a couple other videos, and I really think it's so important for me to really hit this home about what that means to be truly authentic to yourself and to others, and of course, the way it impacts how you lead. An American psychologist named Carl Rogers proposed an idea that therapists can't really make change, can't make true change in any of their patients until they take on an unconditional, positive regard of who they are. The vast majority of us, though, expect that love, approval, and praise comes from doing and saying things that people, initially our parents, consider correct. Because most of us have this conditional regard for our love, praise, and approval, we hide who we are and what we really think, instead calibrating our words and disclosing very little about us instead. If we consider this deeper, we can even use an example. Let's say that a doctor is talking to a patient and they're about to perform open heart surgery. What happens is that the doctor comes up to the person and says, "Hey, listen, look, even though we can do this surgery, this is not a guaranteed fix all. You are going to need to make a few changes if you really want to become more healthy again." And the patient's going to say, "Yes, yes, doc, I get it. I will change. Give me the surgery." Fun fact, 90% of people who do get those operations don't actually change their behaviors. 90% of them stay in the habits and their behaviors that they've had up until that point. And another quote that Susan Scott says, a brilliant person that wrote a book called Fierce Conversations, she said that a careful conversation is a failed conversation. Why? Because you're not being authentic, you're not being genuine, you're not really expressing your true self because of this conditional positive reframe of, or sorry, this conditional positive approval that we get for our love, for others' love, praise, and approval. That's why so little changes. Now, some of you may be saying, "Spencer, I am authentic. Spencer, I am not trying to hide who I really am, especially around my friends or close buds. I really am who I say I am." Really? Let me ask you this. How many of you say honestly? How many of you say for real? If I can be candid, right? Or to be upfront. You're having these phrases, these words that are expressing that you are being genuine, you're being authentic in your opinion in this moment, which also implies that you have not been authentic or real or in the moment for any of the previous of any conversation with anyone. And if you think about that, it makes sense because every day, just like how we observe and we have this conditional thing, every day we comfort ourselves with little lies. I can do this later. I can do it tomorrow. I still have time. Just one or two more things before the event. Whatever the case is, they're not as bad as they seem. Oh, it's going to work out. We give ourselves little lies to comfort ourselves from the truth because the truth is frankly tougher to deal with than the lies themselves. And you have some of these phrases that show that you're not being authentic, that show that you're not being real. And there's such an easy way to deal with this. First of all, you gotta realize that your word is you. It is yourself. This begs the question, how can we really be authentic to ourselves? How can we really be our true selves? And that is a question that's been as old as time. Like, how can you really be your true self? Let's look into it. When people consider the true self, what do people typically consider? If you're gonna say who you are yourself, you're gonna point to your physical body. You're gonna point to your thoughts. My thoughts are what make me myself. My emotions are what make me myself. They make me human. My a body, like my how fit I am, my status, the role in society, resources, reputation. The list can go on and on and on and on and on about what people view to be themselves, of all these distinguishing themes. What if I told you that none of this is actually who you are? Now, a lot of you may be thinking, what? How is it that it's not who I am? Because let me tell you this, when people talk about working on themselves, that means that they're working on themselves as if themselves, as in the self, is an object. It's almost like they're saying that you're a clay on a plate. So yourself is molding the clay into something that is workable for them. If that's the case though, who's working the clay? You are working the clay. So how can you be working on yourself when you're really working on the clay? That doesn't make any sense. And the way you can distinguish this is because if here, let me just rewrite this. Let me just put a few examples here. So if your body was in fact yourself, stop aging. If your emotions were really yourself, then no longer feel fear of success. You know, you could stop feeling indefinitely. I'm gonna say, stop feeling indefinitely. If your thoughts are yourself, then stop thinking and never have a thought again. Can't really do that, can you? If your circumstances were yourself, then change them. At the snap of your fingers, change who you are, where you're at. Change your location, change who you're married to, change the people that you have in your team, change your money, change all these things, but you can't. None of these are yourself. None. And to express that you're working on yourself is also causing distance between you and dealing with what you need to be working on in the first place. Now, the question becomes, what is your real authentic self? Your real authentic self. And all these things have in common. Everything I showed you had something in common. All those things showed that you have no control. You don't have any control over any of those things that I just talked about. And if that's the case, we need to think about what is the one thing that truly makes us ourselves? What is the one thing that really is what we can control? You can take a moment to think about it. The one thing that you have 100% control over, the one thing is your word. It's your word. Because at the end of the day, people can influence what you say, people can reframe stuff, and whatever the case is. At the end of the day, though, what you say, what comes out of your mouth, only you can say, only you can express, only you can even repeat the impression that was put upon you. But for that to happen, the impression has to be on you. It is you, it is your word, it is your say. And when you really grab that, when you really understand that, and understand that 100% control is over your word, your say, then you take 100% responsibility over what you say. And in turn, it adds so much more weight to what you say, so much more meaning to what you say. That's empowering. It can be either empowering or it can be disempowering, however you view it. I view it as empowering, and it's empowered me to start all this. It's empowered me to, go out on my own and do things that others wouldn't typically expect. It's power. It's my self. It's my authentic self. People will talk about your subconscious all the time, right? So if I were to draw a brain here, people talk about the subconscious all the time. What the subconscious, the reason why your word is you, and people talk about affirmations and repeating stuff to yourself in the mirror, is because your subconscious, the only embodiment of the self-conscious that it has to express itself is your word. It can only view itself, your subconscious, it can only view itself through your word. And that's why, depending on what you say and the weight of which it means for you, the way that you treat of what you're saying, the way that you're honoring what you say, impresses, like it puts an impression on the subconscious. And this isn't me just gabbing. This has been proven by science that what you say affects your subconscious. And that's why 100% of your word is the impression, is the embodiment of your self-conscious. Now, people will say, okay, well then, I'm going to be rich. I am rich. I am wealthy. I am fit when they're fat. I'm wealthy when I'm poor. And they'll start to say those things. And I need to be very specific here. It's what you say and the weight of meaning that it has to it. If you say that you're rich and you don't really feel rich, that has nothing. In fact, it feels like a lie to your subconscious, and therefore, your subconscious doesn't think it's rich. It doesn't think that it is. It itself is not the embodiment of rich and wealthiness. That's not all what happens. And that's why you gotta be really careful what you say and take ownership of it. Be proud of what you say. I may not be wealthy yet. That has a lot more weight to it, doesn't it? I may not be fit yet. I may not be a great leader yet. I may not be able to give presentations yet. I'll tell you though, I will be a great presenter. Oh, it's just so powerful. I really hope that you guys get that. This is it. This is how you're truly your authentic self. When you accept that 100% of when you start living as in 100% of what you say is who you are, and you understand that scientifically this has been proven to be the case, it changes your whole world. Changes your whole world. I'm going to start talking about the next phase of dealing with this. Really saying to people authentically what you think. And it may sound funny. You know those stupid, I shouldn't say stupid. You know those people in high school that would just say the first thing that came out of their mouth and the teacher said, you should really think first before opening your mouth? No? Well, I was one of those people. I was. I had a teacher, my teachers all the time. I would just say the first thing that came to mind. I wouldn't really think about it. And they should say, you really should think before you speak. And I didn't, and I didn't like being made wrong, and I started ignoring my teachers, and I'm sure that they had some merit to it. I also didn't realize though that people really shelter themselves. They really hide themselves because of that conditional approval of love, praise, that are dependent on doing and saying the right things that are, again, initially our parents said was right, was the way to go about it. And nowadays, when I feel nervous about something, I tell everyone. When I feel giddy about something, I tell everyone. When I think of someone, I tell them because I am being my true, authentic, real self. I'm not hiding behind anything. In fact, I can't tell you guys, when I really learned this and really figured this out for myself, at my volleyball games, I would tell my teammates straight up, "Hey guys, I'm really nervous. I don't know why. I'm feeling really nervous and I'm so psyched for the game." I would just tell them that. And especially when I have an issue with someone now, I'll authentically tell them, it's like, "Hey, listen, I'm actually rubbing up something against you. I've had a story in my mind, or I feel like I've been authentic. I feel like I've been tolerating something with us, and I would love if we could just talk and address it." And we do, because we also then take actions to prevent that from happening in the future again and again and again. And when you can really freely express yourself, you can also find that it's incredibly powerful for you to get what you want. It's very powerful for you to get what you want because you start asking for things more. You don't withhold yourself from what you want more. And because you're stepping into that reality that you yourself are your word and you embrace it, all of a sudden, people are going to notice that. You start having a presence. You start having an aura of some kind. And I know that's cliche for people in my generation because, there is something called aura nowadays, but that's all it is. The aura that people express in Gen Z, right? The aura that they're talking about, that's a presence. That's an atmosphere that you've created. You've created this presence that people can't ignore, that people acknowledge because you're being your authentic self. When you have someone who's just shooting this shit, you know that they're not being their authentic selves. But when you have someone who's being really authentic and is confident in what they're doing and what they say they're going to do, you also know that that's what's going to happen. That's the impression you get. And the way that you determine it in your head after is by their action. It's all backed up by action. Because when you start embracing your word as 100% yourself, your actions start to reflect that. You start being more careful about what you say you're going to do for people. You start being more deliberate about the time you spend and what you focus on. And you spend way more time being intentional with your word and yourself. Anyways, I hope that this video was educational for you and that you got a lot out of it. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.